Welcome to You and Your Money. I'm your host, Michael Porter, and tonight it's all about financial and retirement planning. Brian Hirsch, as usual, in the Zoom room with us, as well as our guest for this evening, who is Grant Locke, the head of Outvest. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have you with us. Grant, coming to you now, we see a lot of advertising by Outsurance, but Outvest is now something that we're seeing more and more of. Is that the long-term side of the business?
Hi, Michael. I think, for a long time that hasn't, Outsurance has been that short-term behemoth in the advertising space. But I think there's also been the Outsurance Life, which is the part of the business that deals with life insurance. Outvest is a new part that deals specifically with investing, and specifically personal investing. And the aim behind the business, which is broadly in line with the way that Outsurance works, is around this march to simplicity. There has been a plethora of complex financial products that are out there in the market at the moment that are increasingly hard to understand and compare. And I think what's this new march is coming, and I think that some of the executives of the financial services firms are signaling this, is that there needs to be simplification. And where Artvest is coming in is around trying to create that simplification for the client, for the financial advisor, for their own clients, but doing it using technology.
Okay, so if you can comment then on the idea of Outvest aiming to be a robo-advisor. I mean, I think so many things, we're living in a remote world, so we're kind of quite accepting of things that are not necessarily face-to-face. But what is a robo-advisor, and how does it work with the Outvest pioneers being or with Outvest being the pioneers in the industry?
It's actually such a fascinating topic, because if you think about it, it's something that has been ongoing now for the last 10 years. It's not new. In fact, robo-advisors in one form or another have been part of the financial advisors toolkit now for probably 25 years. However, what started to happen now is that a lot of the understanding or a lot of the ways in which we can give financial advice is being industrialized. And if you think about it in terms of a car, for example, if you think of a car is nothing more than a series of systems that are put together so that when someone gets inside that car, they understand how to use the steering wheel, the gear shift, and the pedals, and they can get you safely to your destination, but without having to understand how they build the engine. Now, robo-advice is really the same kind of thing. We develop a series of concepts. What constitutes good quality advice? For example, one of the most prevalent is if you invest for a longer period of time, the greater chance that you'll need to is outperform inflation. The greatest chance of outperforming inflation that we know of based on data is investing a higher proportion of your investments in diversified listed equities. It's a very simple concept. And I think that we're starting to embody these in systems that anybody can use. And this is really what robo-advice is all about. It's about creating that transparency around, and an individual has a plan, and giving good quality concepts and financial support to help people achieve that plan, but without them having to understand everything about how the system works. Mm-hmm. The last bit I think is really important is that, funnily enough, it may have crept up on a lot of individuals, is that robo-advice in South Africa is actually regulated already. You have to have a license to dispense what they call automated advice. And I think that's a phenomenal impact of sort of forethought of the regulator to create this understanding of what constitutes good quality automated advice. So you can't just go out there and start building a little system and saying, oh, well, this is automated advice. You actually have to be regulated. And the standards for regulation are actually the basic standards of all regulation with regards FAIS, Financial Advisory and Intermediary Services Act, plus additional requirements to make sure that the advice that you give is replicable, is standardized, and is a good standards, and make sure that you place customers in a good state.
Okay, I think everyone is after advice that they can feel comfortable with, and the more sort of a team you have, whether it's a robo-advice plus your financial advisor, mix and match, you're really going to put yourself in the best possible position so that you know that you're making solid decisions around for your financial life.
Absolutely. No, I think you're absolutely right, but I think the core of that is actually around outcomes. We've got to think about things differently. For the longest time, we have thought about performance. and we've talked about performance in the industry, and the performance has been the thing that we've sold. But I think what this technology allows you to do is actually to create a simple investment plan with an outcome and track that outcome until it is achieved in a very transparent way. And that's really the revolution that Roboadvice is bringing to investments. It's not like it's a little secret sauce anymore where you kind of hope and pray and you've got to revert back and change everything. Really, you can now set an outcome, track that investment outcome, and help your clients achieve it. And I think that's really the value of what this is bringing to the market.
Brian, if I can ask for your comment here in terms of this robo-advice and how much it then bolsters your ability to help your clients as part of the larger system.
Well, anything that's adding to education. I mean, understanding and education is the so important thing. What investors tend to do that are wrong is they make investments without fully understanding what the investment they're actually making is all about. And that's why when you talk about long-term, people forget the word long-term. And everyone's got a different understanding of long-term. But when you talk 5 to 10 years out, I have people who contact you after 2 or 3 months in a 10-year program that want to know why markets are down. I mean, the best time to buy is when markets are down. So I think the more education, the more knowledge you've got, you're empowered. And if that's what Roboadvice is doing, then it's very, very helpful and very useful in the industry, because it's that lack of understanding where people keep making the same mistakes because they don't really understand what they've invested for, whether it be buying life insurance, disability, dreaded disease, or making investments. Forget very quickly. Understand at the time of buying, but short-term memories, and that is what is critical going forward. And that's what these programs are all about. These programs are about educating people to understand. If you don't understand the investment you're making, don't make it. Absolutely. Rather wait until you do, ask more questions. Don't ever be nervous of asking questions. I've always said you can't ask a stupid question, but you can get a stupid answer. And I think about the lectures you give. You're giving a lecture to a group of 300 people. You come to the end, you ask the group any questions. And slowly one person puts up their hand with a simple question, and you can see the rest of the hall sort of relax because it's a question they wanted to ask, but they didn't. They felt it was a stupid question and it would make them look stupid. There's no such thing as a stupid question when it comes to investing. Understand what you're doing. And if Roboadvice is going to do that, it's good for the overall industry and most important for the consumer.
Okay. Grant, coming back to you now, Eric in Sydenham has said, I've read in your advertising that your objective is to deliver outcome-based investing. Why do you think that this is the future?
I think it is really going to be the future of investing, and we've actually seen it in practice. So just a little bit of background, what we're able to do on the platforms, because we understand the investment plan and what someone's trying to achieve, we can track it against everything that's actually happened in real life. And so we have a piece of information that is very rare in the industry at the moment. And effectively, we are able to track the success of every single investment plan on the Artvest platform. And we've been live now for nearly 4 years. And what we've found is that about 83% of all investment contracts who follow the algorithm, who contribute in line with expectations, will meet at least 95% or more of their target after fees. Now, whilst this sounds a bit black boxy, actually what it is we're actually able to quantify the value a financial advisor has in the life of a client. Because if you think about it, what a financial advisor does is create an investment plan for you, and they hold you to that plan. They intervene, they make sure that you stay on track for the long term. We've actually taken a tiny snippet of the skill of a financial advisor and put that into a system. And so financial advisors and their clients can also now benefit from this. So that's really the value of outcomes-based investing is it's also not just about performance anymore. You're not having a discussion every 2 months about whether or not the markets have done well, because what we find in practice is that most of the reason why clients on our platform are not achieving their tracked objectives is because of their own actions. And this is the really interesting part. It's not necessarily because of market performance. And so this for us really starts to create a new dialogue that you have around your investments, about not only the responsibility of the financial advisor to give advice and deliver a sound investment solution, but also the responsibility of the client. And that's what the technology makes very clear. And that's why outcomes investing is so important. We think it's critical to the future of investing because it helps create that certainty, that understanding on an intraday basis. Anytime you log in, you can see whether you're on track or not and get yourself on track.
Okay. And then Grant, coming back to you from Miranda in Mulbarton, she says, how do I go about tracking the performance of my investments? Who sets the targets or objectives, and how does it work in practice?
This is really the great thing about taking what is a human process and adding a digital layer to it. Excuse me. So what the technology allows you to do is it effectively takes financial planning and makes it tangible, something you can feel and touch, and makes it easy to use. So when you say who sets the targets or objectives, actually it's the financial advisor and their client that sets the targets or objectives. The technology is the piece of it that helps decide or helps allocate which is the right asset allocation, exactly to Brian's point. And also, what is a sustainable return? Because a lot of the basics of these are things that are not standardized in the industry. So what the technology does is creates this interactive dialogue that you can have. When you set a target or when you set an amount you can afford, the technology will forecast what that outcome should be. And behind the scenes, we've used over 120 years of market data from 27 different markets to try and come up with what is a sustainable return, a conservative sustainable return, net of all fees. And you get that instantaneously. And any time you were to set an investment target, the system will automatically work out, taking into account any lump sum contributions, what is the monthly contribution that you would need to make to reach that target with a desired level of certainty. So that interaction, and that's how the targets are set, but it's something that is really easy to use and really intuitive and simple. Too often, I think a lot of these tools are very powerful, but they're very complex. And I think the secret is really, what do you focus on? And that's really I think the thing that we are most proud of is that most people can use the system. And the system works in such a way that it will give you a simple but a trustworthy outcome to track. We have no objective to try and forecast a return that is unachievable. And actually what we want is to make sure that most of those outcomes are achieved on the platform, because again, when you are using outcomes-based investing, that outcome is something that sits when a client logs in every single day. So it's got to be transparent. It's got to be achievable.
Grant, Brian, thank you so much for joining us. A wonderful discussion, as always, on you and your money. Please do note that this program is to provide information and should not be construed as advice. Once again, thank you so much to our guests this evening. Until next time, have a great one. Goodbye.